So one of the questions I got asked on the vault was from Samu, and Samu was asking about kind of when it comes to the belts from white to black, what do I expect? Like, what do I expect from those? And again, that's a really, each one of those has a lot of specifics that I can get into. And so to answer the question for you, Samu, without getting too deep into the specifics, I'll give you something to think about for each belt, and we'll kind of go through that. And for you guys, this might be useful. Now, I'll sort of throw a caveat to this. These different things are my sort of interpretations, my expectations for the belts. It's different for everyone, right? Everyone has their own way of going about this. There is no one way to do jiu-jitsu, and so these are my sort of ideas on it. So, but I think if you think about them, they might be useful to you as well. So the first thing is the white belt. To me, that's the survivor, right? When you come into jiu-jitsu, and we all know this, right? You come into jiu-jitsu, you have no idea what's going on. And even if you have an idea of what's going on, like you've seen jiu-jitsu, right? You haven't felt it yet. Feeling it is different than seeing it, because again, jiu-jitsu is not just about head knowledge. If it was, you could go watch a DVD and you'd be as good as someone else, but it's about the body, right? The body has to absorb all this stuff. And so when you come in, you're surviving most of the time, right? You're a person that's drowning, and then slowly you're starting to tread water and come up. And so for me, as I look at white belts, that first phase is to, one, see that they begin to recognize the different positions. I can see this in a lot of times in my students when they begin to, if I say to do a move, they don't have to go through anything crazy to adjust. They just immediately get into the position, and then they begin to survive. Towards the end of that phase of the white belt, you start to see that they begin to mount offense, right? They go from a pure survival situation to they're holding their own, and then boom, you start to see them mount their own offense. And it's at that point that I then sort of look towards blue belt for them. And at that blue belt phase, again, you guys have heard me talk about this on the channel. If you've watched my videos, I call it the buffet belt, but it's the sampler. As a blue belt, you're it's almost like, and again, blue belt, the belt itself is not really important. What I'm talking about is the skill level that sort of matches up with it, right? The skill level that it takes for me to give a blue belt, that's what I'm looking at, not so much just the belt itself, because it's not like I gave them a belt and magically they got better. It's the watching them progress, and then the blue belt is simply that stamp that says that they're at that point. When I give someone a blue belt, typically it's almost like you're giving a teenager the keys to the car, right? They've been cooped up forever in these positions, right? They've been cooped up, and now all of a sudden you give them the car and they begin to go drive around and kind of experience things for themselves. And going back to that analogy, when you're surviving and you're drowning, it's like the drowning person that sort of waddles their way up to the surface and then climbs up into the raft of the boat. Mm-hmm. And now they can go exploring. They can go in different directions. And so as a blue belt, a lot of times you now have this newly found skill where you can go, I'm kind of good at jiu-jitsu, right? I'm still beginning, but I'm good enough to where I'm not getting smashed constantly. Let me try out all these different positions now that I have some basic fundamental foundation under me. And that's where typically as blue belts, you'll start to see people play with positions that aren't simply the basic stuff, right? The fundamental stuff. You start to see them to dabble a bit. Now, towards the end of blue belt, you'll start to see this thing where they begin to sort of hone in on a particular position, right? They start to zero in on something, and that's typically where I start to promote people to purple belt, which to me is the prototype. Because at purple belt, typically you will see someone over the course of their purple belt phase begin to develop a position or a technique or something that is almost at black belt or is at black belt level. Like, Rich and Chad, two of my students, both had black belt triangle choke and triangle choke positions at purple belt. Now, there are other parts of their game were still underdeveloped in comparison, but that one part of their game was incredibly good. My guard passing was a black belt. And again, maybe not a good black belt, but I could hang with black belts if I was passing. Now, if they got on top of me, I was screwed, but I wasn't good enough for that, but I could pass well. Eugene, you and Tim Huber, both as purple belts, had a black belt collar choke when you guys were training. You guys both had those collar chokes set up, and you were catching guys, and it's a really good choke. So at that point, once they have that really tight position where they've begun to develop the prototype, because even for me, I can look at my old purple belt matches and rolling, and I can see who I am now back as a purple belt, because I'm doing a lot of the same stuff, just different, right? Then it gets into the brown belt phase, and brown belt to me is the polisher, right? Brown belt's where you begin to flesh out some of those positions. So maybe as a purple belt, you begin to find that you're really good at half guard, right? So at blue belt, you started to dabble in half guard. Purple belt, you really begin to zero in on it. And then at brown belt, you begin to expand and really polish that position, make it a lot better. Again, all the other positions are getting better as well, but you're beginning to put that polishing touch on mostly your A game type stuff, as well as other stuff. And again, you're sampling the whole time, right? You're always sampling different techniques along the way. But then after that polish is put on, then you get to black belt, right? And you can see that brown belts are a lot of times very competitive with black belts. And then once you get to black belt, then you get into what I consider kind of you're now your own creator with this stuff, because now it's time to take all that stuff you've been learning, take off the any sort of worry about belts, the fact that you've probably been training for a long time, and now you can create something new. Right? That to me, that's what it comes to the black belt, right? It's I've shared this quote numerous times, but the Charlie Parker quote, which is master your instrument, master the music, and then forget all that bullshit and just play. Music is your own experience, your thoughts, your wisdom, and if you don't live it, it won't come out of your horn. I think it's a beautiful thing, right? So again, you master all these lessons you're learning from your coaches and instructionals and everything else. You get into the rolling and you master your positions and all that stuff. And then you just say, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to just see what happens and I'm going to try stuff out. And then, a lot of times black belts will say that once you get your black belt, you start over. I think it's kind of true. And so again, then you begin to just play your own music. You get to play your own style, make stuff up as you go because you've got the ability to do that. Now, along the way, there are things for me personally as a coach that I look at because there's one side of it is absolutely the skill level. Yeah. But the other side of it is the culture stuff. Because again, one of the things that I'm really big on is the culture of the gym maintaining a certain feel to it. Right. Right. So for instance, if one of the things is that I want to notice is when these white belts begin to make themselves better and these blue belts begin to make themselves better, are they lifting up people with them? Right. Are they smashing people and then standing over top of them, or are they getting better and then pulling people up along with them? Because for me, I'm not going to promote assholes. I'm not going to promote people who put others down. I'm not going to promote other people that are negative towards, their brothers and sisters on the mat. I don't care how good you are. You could be amazing, but if you're negative towards other people, I don't want you. Because to me, it's like you become a problem, and to me, you're missing the whole friggin' point of this thing. And so to me, as people get better, to me, your whole point is as you're going up, remember, you're pulling people up along with you and we get better. We get better. As we all get better together, we only improve. You want to bring everybody else up with you. Like, again, as a coach, I was bringing people up with me so they could keep me sharp and make me better. Right. And so that's been the case. I want to see people that put in effort. I don't care how talented you are. If I don't see you putting in the effort, if you're not putting in the time, I don't care. I'm not going to promote you. If you're not listening, it's again, if I give you something, again, I want to see that you're taking the lessons to heart, and so there's a lot of cultural stuff or culture related stuff that is very important to me just as much as the technique stuff, because I think that a lot of times with jiu-jitsu, whether you want to or not, you're getting lessons along the way that can translate off the mat. You just sometimes they're not spelled out to you in a different way. So
would you let somebody you probably know their character already before they get to brown belt or upper level brown belt. So would you already kind of shut that off at an earlier phase? Meaning, would you just say like, look, maybe this is not the right fit, or would you just promote them up to brown belt and then have them sit there? I mean, eventually they're going to want brown belt or black belt, right?
So if I had someone, sometimes the character, and it's a weird thing because sometimes people's character, kind of their true character, pops out.
Well, you've caught it early, I think, before.
I've done it numerous times, right? Yeah. But with people a lot of times you want to convert them. You want to look, this mindset that you have
save you
is this mindset is not. It's not resourceful to you or the people around you. Let's drop it, But in a lot of cases, it'll never get that far, because I would never promote someone to purple belt if their character was off. Because now let's say that maybe they were doing really well and all of a sudden it surprised me as a brown belt, and then all of a sudden they became like a dick on the mat, which would be, I would surprise me. But what if they did? I wouldn't promote them, and I would tell them. I would be honest with them because that's what I expect. I was like, you're not just in here to get really good at jiu-jitsu and smash people. That's a part of it, right? But there's a whole other thing that should be wrapped around that. And again, everybody has their own style in this, right? My way is not the right way. My way is just the way that I do it. And for me, there's a whole philosophy wrapped around this thing that isn't just simply get really good at jiu-jitsu and smash people. That's part of it. But there should be, to me, I just look at it as more than that. Right. And that's the way that I do things.
Well, I think that what you do is you give people chances and you give them opportunities. You let it be known kind of what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Look, this is the way you're presenting yourself in the gym. This is what the environment it's building or causing. And then I think you kind of give them an opportunity to make that transition, make that change. And if they don't, make that change, then I guess, they know.
That's on them. I give people chances, but it's on them.
Yeah.